paid ads. Now, this can be the best thing or the worst thing. Paid ads is an amazing way to get in front of people that you've never gotten in front of before, to be able to find your people. But it's also a great way to bleed money if you don't know what you're doing. And so it's kind of that catch 22. So, since I want you to win and make sure that you don't bleed money, I want to go over some of the foundations and some of the fundamentals and the basics of paid ads so that you can win and start growing your business. So, there are only about 4 places that I would recommend paying for ad space. The first one, Facebook. Second one, podcast. Now, if you have a podcast, your hosting company probably has a service that you can advertise on. But if not, you can use a service like Midroll or something like that. Number 3 would be Google. And number 4 would be YouTube. Now, if you've never used any of these for ads or tried anything with them or open an account or anything like that, there's a great beginner service that I would recommend. It's called Plai, I think. Plai. That is a great kind of all-in-one. Doesn't have anything for a podcast in there yet, but it's kind of an all-in-one marketing buddy, I would say, because it's a one-stop shop place where you can start creating ads so you can get used to kind of how it functions, kind of the way it feels, and once you start getting some analytics back and, know what works and what doesn't, you can start venturing on your own and really start tweaking things to do the best. But this kind of walks you through it, baby steps you through it. So if you've never done ads before, I would recommend that app. It's helped a lot of my clients get into pay for ads. Now, what kind of ads do you want to do? I would recommend that you start with only 2 types of ads. The first one being SLOW, which stands for self-liquidating offer. It means that you are selling something really low cost to kind of get their feet wet, to get their foot in the door, and so that you can send them through a funnel that kind of upsells them later. The reason SLOs are really good are because they kind of pay for the ads. The money that you get in, you're not going to get rich off, and you're not actually going to do a lot of revenue through it. But what you do get through it should pay for all the ads that you're spending. So self-liquidating offer is exactly what it is. It kind of self-liquidates itself, which is great, especially if you're just starting out and you really don't have a lot of cash to put into this. And this can be something like an ebook, a video series, something that is a low cost and something that doesn't take you more than a weekend to create, and depending on what it is, it can be anywhere from $5 to $50, kind of something that is really appealing, doesn't cost a lot, doesn't take a lot of time, and helps get your potential buyer familiar with you and their foot in the door. And the second type are opt-ins. These are when you want to grow your mailing list or your viewership, promote your podcast or your YouTube channel. Opt-ins are great because you can capture people's information and then send them emails. And we'll talk about emails a little bit later, but getting an email list is such an amazing tool and something that I suggest that everyone have. So those are the 2 types of ads I would recommend you start out with. Either a self-liquidating offer or an opt-in. Now make sure that whenever you're creating ads, you set aside the budget for it and you have some way to track how much each potential buyer, each person that converts, buys something, or you get information from, some way to track how much it costs you per person. Those are really the 2 metrics that you really need to look at in the beginning. What it costs you per person, how much you're spending a month, a quarter, a week running those. Because if you don't keep an eye on those 2 things, this ad spend can get away from you really fast, and it can just be kind of a hole that you're throwing money into. And we don't want that. We want to make sure that we know what our numbers are. We want to make sure that each thing we do is effective. And I would also recommend, once you get used to making ads and kind of creating ads, you start doing some A/B tests. And especially Facebook is great with A/B test. And all that means is you have two ads that are selling the same thing, but one is maybe a video, one is maybe long form, and maybe a different thumbnail, which is just the picture in the front that they see, and seeing how each one does. If one does better than the other, then you know, okay, people are engaging with this type of content more than the other type of content. And so that is all for the basics and fundamentals of paid for ads.